Did you shoot to kill your persons in the Congress?
Not to kill.
What was the purpose of this shooting?
The purpose of the shooting was in a clamor of freedom for my country.
Well, miss, can you tell us whose idea this was?
Not that. It's my idea and our idea, the four of us idea.
Lolita Lebrón, whose birth name was Dolores Lebrón Sotomayor, was born on November 19, 1919, in Lourdes, Puerto Rico. Lebrón was considered in her town a very beautiful young woman, where she competed and was even elected Queen of the Flowers of May in a beauty pageant. It wasn't until later in her teen years where she was radicalized by a police massacre of nationalist demonstrators in the city of Pounds, which resulted in 17 people's death. Because of this incident, Lebrán's perspective began to change and she joined the Puerto Rican Liberal Party. Lebrón later moved to New York City in 1940. During this period of immigration, Lebrón was among many other Puerto Rican immigrants who took up jobs as seamstresses in the garment industry. It was in America that Lebrón joined the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party, gaining influence within the party's leadership circle. It was within the organization where Lebrón shared and promoted ideas based on socialist and feminist principles. While living in the States, Lebrón experienced anti-Latino racism that she often encountered in the workplace. This resulted in her joining Pedro Albizu's Nationalist Party in 1947. After Lebrón joined Alvarez's party, the two began to correspond with one another, and Lebrón began to take an even more important role in the party's U.S. branch.
On March 1st, 1954, Lolita Lebrón led an attack on the U.S. House of Representatives with 3 Puerto Rican nationalists.
In Washington, scenes of confusion naturally followed news of the shooting outrage. The 5 representatives injured in the affray were rushed to hospital. The assailants were Puerto Ricans, led by this woman, Mrs. Lolita Lebrón, said to have shouted, "Free Puerto Rico."
As she held up the Puerto Rican flag and demanded freedom for Puerto Rico by saying, "Viva Puerto Rico Libre," her assailant shot rounds below the public gallery, causing 5 U.S. House of Representatives to sustain injuries.
This is the chamber of the House of Representatives within a few moments after it was emptied, still showing the aftermath of the wild hail of bullets by fanatic Puerto Rican nationalists. Outside the Capitol, hospital and emergency units quickly mobilized to care for the 5 wounded congressmen cut down in the fantastic sudden shooting. Very seriously hurt is Representative Alvin Bentley of Michigan. Also hit by the flying bullets are Congressman Ben Jensen of Iowa, Clifford Davis of Tennessee, Kenneth Roberts of Alabama, and George Fallon of Maryland.
There were no fatalities following the attack. The attack occurred 2 years after Puerto Rico became a Commonwealth to the United States.
Are you sorry that you shot these 5 congressmen?
I'm not sorry for what I did.
How about you, Ms. Lebrón?
I am not sorry.
What did you say, Miss?
I'm not sorry to come and ask freedom for my country any place.
After completing half of her 50-year sentence for her attack on the U.S. House of Representatives, she was granted clemency by President Jimmy Carter in 1979, and she was later released along with her assailants. Years later, Lolita came forward and said that her plan was to never kill anyone in the attack. She and the 3 other nationalists were all expecting to die the day of the attack. After the attack, police found a letter in Lebrón's purse, which highlighted her motives for attacking the U.S. House of Representatives. The note said, "My life I give for the freedom of my country. The United States is betraying the sacred principles of mankind and their continuous subjugation of my country. I am a revolutionary.
Lolita Lebrón politicized those that were not political. Many Nuyorican became politicized and began to understand the quest of the independence struggle once they learned the events of 1954 at the House of Representatives. That is not a small event in world and in U.S. and Puerto Rican history. We instilled an impression in the psychic of our colonizers, of our oppressors. They will never forget what we are capable of doing. That is what 1954 represents. We are not about tossing flowers and candles. We are about taking our struggle to whatever extent and by whatever means necessary. That is what Lolita Lebrón represents.
Ahora, contra el imperio y la represión, contra el imperio y la represión. Así te recuerdo.